Thank you, members. Very well welcome, members, officers, to this special meeting of the Inverclyde Council. This meeting is being held remotely and also in person, and will be filmed and recorded for live and subsequent broadcast available through the Council's website. The Council is a data controller under the General Data Protection Regulations and Data Protection Act 2018. We broadcast and record Council meetings to fulfil our public task obligation to enable members of the public to observe the democratic process. The data collected during the process will be retained in accordance with Council's published policies available through the Council's website. Members of the Council are reminded that they should follow the Council's established meeting protocols, including around the use of the chat facility. The comments made in the chat facility are visible to all participants in the meeting, which may include members of the public who have also received invites to the meeting. Do we have any apologies or declarations of interest?
Provost, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Daisley and Councillor Nelson. We'll now move to an attendance roll call before proceeding to declarations of interest. Can the following members please indicate if they're present at the meeting either in person or remotely? Councillor Armstrong.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brennan.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Brooks.
In the chamber.
Councillor Cassidy.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Clockerty.
Present remotely.
Councillor Crowther.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Curley.
Present in chamber.
Councillor Hellier.
Present remotely.
Councillor Jacks.
Present in the chamber.
Councillor Law.
Present remotely.
Councillor McCabe.
Present chamber.
Councillor McCormick.
Present remotely.
Councillor Maguire.
Present.
Provost Mackenzie.
In chamber.
Councillor McVeigh.
Chamber.
Councillor Moran. Councillor Quinn.
Present remotely.
Because he's in twice. I think it's
Councillor Quinn.
Sorry, present remotely.
Councillor Reynolds.
Present remotely.
Councillor Robertson.
Terrified to speak in case it's an echo, but present remotely.
Councillor Wilson.
present remotely.
Are there any declarations of interest?
Thank you very much. We did have a wee problem there with sound, with echoes. If members or officers joining us online, if you just make sure that you're muted. You'll have the apology there for Councillor Daisley. Councillor Daisley is this afternoon in Inverclyde Royal. He's undergone surgery, and I think it would be proper for us to pass on our best wishes to Councillor Daisley and wish for a speedy recovery and that he's back with us in due course. Also, before we start the business, you'll see up in the top right-hand corner of the screen, Mr. Ruth Biggs, our Director of Education, who is joining us here today. Of course, as you all know, this is Ms. Biggs' last meeting, the last full council meeting of Inverclyde Council before she moves on to a new position within the realms of education. I think remiss of us if we were not to thank Ms. Biggs for her tremendous service to this council over almost the last 11 years and wish her every success for her future employment and within her career within education. Members, would you join with me wishing Ruth every success? Councillor Hillier, you get your hand up.
No, I was just thinking, that was all, thank you.
And Councillor Nelson is nice to have you with us. The late Councillor Nelson. Item 2 on the agenda today is the 2026-28 revenue budget, 2026-29 capital programme, and the approval of the 26-27 Band D council tax. And I will go to the Chief Financial Officer, Mr.
Thank you, Provost. This report provides Council with detailed information in relation to the financial position of the Council over the next 2 financial years in terms of both revenue and capital expenditure, and asks Council to determine the level of Band D council tax to be levied for 26-27. In addition, the report seeks approval of the Common Good Budget for 26-27. The information provided in this report is based on the draft local government finance settlement for 26-27 issued by the Scottish Government. However, I can now confirm that details of the final settlement have been received and there have been no changes to figures provided. This report includes a number of proposals in relation to the utilisation of reserves, recognition of additional budget pressures and additional savings. These proposals reflect the recommendation of the members' budget working group. If approved, these proposals would result in a revised budget gap over the next 2 years of £6.24 million, and Council is asked to determine the level of council tax for 26-27, noting the recommendation of the members' budget working group for a 7.9% increase. I'd just like to say that this has been my first experience of a budget within Inverclyde, and I'd like to express my thanks to the members of the members' budget working group, to the Chief Executive and the other members of the CMT for their support and guidance throughout this process. I'd also like to express my thanks to the wider finance team, and most especially to Andrew Edmiston, who undertook the majority of the heavy lifting before I joined the Council. As always, happy to take any questions in relation to the budget report or any of the technical aspects of the proposals.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. First of all, I will open the floor to questions to Mr. Forbes of a technical nature. Then we will, after that's perhaps finished, we will then go to any speeches or motions. We have standing orders within this council that restricts the time for speeches for presenting the motion or speaking at the full council. I will relax these timings today for everybody wishing to speak, because we wish to hear what you have to say. Do we have any questions of a technical nature for Mr. Forbes? Councillor Ryan.
I thank Rod. I'd like to thank the budget work group and the officers for the great work they've done in producing this report. But there is 3.2, there's a certain risk that's been highlighted. And Robert, on Tuesday, the Chief Executive gave a speech, and she was saying it was absolutely out of date, which was talking, because circumstances had changed so much over the time she prepared the speech, the time she gave it to Parliament. So, with that in mind, I'm looking at the council tax input projections, and one of the things that they're saying is the collection rate is 96.5, and this, if it reduces, there's an adverse impact on income availability if that was to drop any. And the other one I'm looking at was pay inflation, where pay awards with staff are agreed 2027, risks remain. And the reason I'm saying this because last night the General Secretary of the EIS of Scotland says that she was having a mandate for strike action, and today we're hearing that the General Roof, who the Cabinet Secretary of Education, is wanting to meet the employers and the teachers to talk about a way forward. Now, we're employing for the teachers here in Inverclyde, as far as I remember. So, if there's any other additional money to be made available to teachers, where would that come from? Would that have to come from the council? And we've already made assumptions that what we will need going forward. So if this was to be extra money we've to find, surely we need some reassurance of the Scottish Government that if they are going to make some allowances for teachers, and it will be money, whether we like it or not, then they should fully pay this. It should not come out of us, because we've made this budget, we made assumptions on it. on the capital grant you're giving us. So on that last night and today, circumstances again have overtaken us here. So where are we placed if additional burdens is placed on us regarding how we read our budget at the moment? So I don't know if you can answer it, but certainly to me, it's another risk. Maybe it's not in here, and something we need to get answers of.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Now, Mr. Forbes, do you share on the same fears that Councillor Ryan has just intimated?
Through you, Provost, just taking the points raised in order. So council tax, so we assume a 96.5% collection rate. That's over a number of years, not in the first year that the council tax is levied. And I'm happy to say that as a council, we continue to achieve that or better. So although there is a risk, if there's an economic downturn and collection rates fall, that's a risk that every council faces, but it's not one that we see on the immediate horizon. In terms of pay, in terms of the 26-27 budget, that pay deal has already been done for both local government workers and teachers. The 27-28 pay negotiations have not yet begun, and that would obviously be started through the audit of COSLA. We have provided for 3% assumption within the budget, and obviously those negotiations could go in a number of ways, and it would be impossible for me to predict that at this point in time. In terms of any additional funding, as members will be aware, there's often some negotiation between COSLA and the Scottish Government in relation to pay awards, and in particular in relation to teacher emoluments. So I would expect those negotiations to continue into the future, but we couldn't at any point predict those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forbes. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. I'll go to Councillor Brooks and Councillor Bell.
Thanks very much, Provost. Yeah, it was a question that I had, and I thought it would be answered in the paper, but it's not. I think it will be offline. But I'll give the question as petitions have requested. It's actually the last page, easy in terms of last page 34. And the request was the income that is generated from the Common Good Fund, and you can see that the breakdown there, 186, I think it is, being 2.2, is the income that's generated. The clarity that was requested that I thought might be here, but it isn't, is where that income comes from. Some more details about where we get that money from. So I would hope that new Chief Financial Officer, who is enjoying his first budget, at a later stage of mine, maybe provide you with that information.
Thank you, Councillor Brooks. I'll go to Mr. Forbes, but I think your answer is
Again, through you, Provost. So the majority of the income from Common Good comes from the rental of properties. So I'm happy to provide detail of that rental income to the members of the council.
Thanks, Provost. I'm just going to very briefly note an interest in relation to the discussion about teachers, local government workers and the teaching unions. I work a very small proportion of the week as a teacher in a Scottish local authority, and I'm a member of the EIS, so I just want to declare that for the purposes of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Are there any more technical questions? Then I will go to the Leader of the Council.
Thank you, Provost. And just in relation to the point that Councillor Ryan raised, the dispute with the teaching unions is not over A, it's over non-class contact, and COSLA's position is very clear in that regard, that if we were to implement a reduction in non-class contact time, that there would be additional resources required, and that would need to come from the Scottish Government. So I'm delighted that this year we've been able to secure full agreement in the Members' Budget Working Group for the proposals before us today. And I think it shows that when we are free from external political influences, we can come together in the best interest of Inverclyde. And those who have been directly involved in the Members' Budget Working Group, indeed colleagues around the table and online from our groups who have input into these discussions, have taken a mature and responsible approach to the development of this year's budget proposals. Agreeing to set a 2-year budget with firm figures for 26-27 and indicative figures for 27-28 demonstrates that maturity. We could have actually buried our heads in the sand and simply focused on setting a 1-year budget. That would have been an easier option, but the members of the Members' Budget Working Group and really all colleagues have recognised it would not been the responsible option. However, I did warn colleagues when we were having discussions about council tax rises that if we proposed figures for both years, the local newspaper would simply add the two figures together and produce a bigger figure for the headline. And that's exactly what they did. So as a result, many people commentating on their Facebook page think we're setting a near 16% increase for council tax for 26-27, which is clearly not the case. As we know, Provost, council tax is increasing across Scotland, with increases for 26-27 ranging from 4% in Edinburgh to 10% in Aberdeenshire and Moray. We're in the middle of the pack. I think most councils will be setting their council tax by the end of today. But to arrive at our figure of 7.9%, we need a compromise in the Members' Budget Working Group. Some colleagues would have preferred to have made more savings to have a lower council tax rise, while others would have went marginally higher to reduce the level of reserves that are required to balance the budget. And we have to recognise we are using reserves to balance the budget. Maybe not as many as Shetland are apparently using to balance their budget. And being able to reach compromise, unlike many other councils in Scotland, demonstrates the maturity I talked about earlier. We should not forget, however, Provost, that the principal reason we are having to increase council tax above the rate of inflation is due to the real terms cut in our funding for 26-27 for the Scottish Government and the assumption of a bigger real terms cut for 27-28 based on the Government's medium-term financial strategy. The Chief Financial Officer has calculated that the real terms reduction for 2026-27 to be 2.788 million. That's the equivalent of a 7.3% increase in council tax. So that's most of our 7.9% increase in council tax. And the cut for 27-28 is estimated to be 4.709 million. That's equivalent to an 11.5% increase in council tax. We're not obviously proposing an 11.5% increase in council tax in 2027-28. We are making savings and planning to use reserves to keep the increase to 7.9%. The budget for 27-28 is clearly indicative at this stage. If we were to receive a better settlement from the Scottish Government than currently anticipated, there could be the opportunity to reduce the council tax increase. And I certainly would hope that 7.9% is the worst case scenario for next year. However, if we continue to receive real terms cuts funding during the next Scottish Parliament, as we have during this Parliament, and the Parliament before that, and the Parliament before that, and the Parliament before that, then we will face the same hard choices every year as we have this year. I think it's fair to say we've had some debate in this chamber over council tax over the recent years, but I don't think any of us would see a 7.9% rise in council tax as an easy option, although it is more than the 8.67% increase in charges approved by Scottish Water. While around a quarter of households will face no increase in their bills, we know that rises of this magnitude will impact on family finances. We also know that increases in charges will impact on families and businesses who use council services. There is that alternative. We could have made more cuts to services, and that's certainly not a route that my group wanted to go down. And certainly that wouldn't be an easy option. It wouldn't have been a pain-free option. Because the truth is that after nearly 20 years of cutting budgets, and some of us have been here over those 20 years, since 2008, we have made savings of the order of £77 million on a recurring basis. That's a wee bit short of what we actually give to the Health and Social Care Partnership to fund health and social care services. It's an enormous amount of money that we've taken out of this council over those years. And as a result of that, there simply isn't any fat to cut. There simply isn't. I mean, we get people talking about cutting back in the management structure, cutting back in the number of councillors as well. We've got one of the leanest management structures in Scotland, if not the leanest management structure. There is no fat in this council. There isn't anymore. And even those savings that we are proposing are not pain-free. They involve the loss of 26 posts and will impact on our capacity to respond to the needs of the community. We'll be asking our staff to work harder. That's simply the result of it. And it will impact on the level of service we can provide in some areas. And regularly these days, you see vox pops in the TV and hear comments on social media. Residents here in Inverclyde and elsewhere say, why should we pay more in council tax if we're getting poorer services? And the truth is people don't understand, council tax only funds 14% of the cost of our services. The vast majority of funding comes from the Scottish Government. And when the Scottish Government cuts our funding, we have to increase council tax. And if we don't cut services on top of that, then council tax rises would be even greater. So yeah, people are paying more for poorer services. That's the reality. And also in this budget, we have used a significant part of the savings we've made to try and improve services in other areas. We're providing £800,000 in 26-27 to support services for children and young people looked after by the Health and Social Care Partnership, with a further £500,000 planned for 27-28, and that's on top of the £700,000 we allocated last year for the same purpose. Looking after the most vulnerable in our community is an absolute priority for this council. Decisions obviously on how this funding will be utilised will be taken by integration joint board. We're building in £300,000 into our base budget to enhance out-of-school provision for children and young people with additional support needs. And officers will bring forward a report to the Education and Communities Committee with proposals for how this funding could be best used. Again, looking after the most vulnerable in our community is an absolute priority for this council. And if we were to receive a better settlement from the Scottish Government in 27-28 than we currently anticipated, there may be an opportunity to increase those sums further. In terms of the capital programme, over the next 3 years, we're allocating £87 million. It has reduced a bit because of Scottish Government funding cuts, but it's still an ambitious programme. So it includes £2 million for the regeneration of Port Glasgow Town Centre, over £12 million for road improvements, the completion of our new £10 million learning and disability hub, the completion of the £1.6 million refurbishment and extension of Bree Road Community Hall, over £8 million for maintaining our school estates, £11 million for new commercial properties to attract and retain jobs, and nearly £18 million for the redevelopment of Central Brainerd. An ambitious programme. Got a few people to thank, Provost, a few groups of people. Can I thank the members of the public, partner organisations who responded to our public consultation. I know I speak on behalf of all elected members that we genuinely value their feedback. Our staff and trade union colleagues who responded to the consultation and shared their views with elected members. Staff are the most important resource in any organisation, and we are fortunate to have very good staff in this council, and indeed very good trade unions, who play a constructive role each year in the development of our budget. And I would particularly like to thank those employees who will leave the council as a result of this budget for their service to the community and the council, I'm sure over many years. Our team and our staff and finance and other services, some of whom are here today, who have supported the Member Budget Working Group and the development of the budget in the most professional way, and we are very grateful for that support. And finally, to all the elected members across the council who have contributed to the development of the proposals before us today, either directly within the Member Budget Working Group or within their groups and feeding into that process. As I said earlier, I think it's a model for the rest of Scotland. And some councils have taken up that model. It's good to see more councils actually achieving consensus in terms of the budget proposals this year. So now can I make the formal resolution, Provost? So I move that the council notes that the results of the council's budget consultation have been duly considered and due regard has been given to the equality impact assessments, the Fairest Scotland duty assessment, the UNCRC impact assessment, and the principles of the Armed Forces Covenant, all as relating to the savings and proposals set out in the Chief Financial Officer's report, and as referred to in paragraph 5.6 of the report. The Council approves all the recommendations contained in the Chief Financial Officer's report, including the use of available reserves where noted. And that the Council approves the following council tax resolution: that council tax be increased by 7.9% in 2026-27, with a further indicative increase of 7.9% for 27-28, meaning that the level of Band D council tax for Inverclyde for 26-27 will be £1,673.85. I move promised, and I would invite Councillor McGuire to second.
Thank you. Councillor McGuire.
Thank you, Provost and Councillor McCabe. I'd like to start by saying thank you to everyone who has been involved with and part of the budget process this year. The Members' Budget Working Group, as I've said in previous years, is a unique invention of Inverclyde Council and remains a forum which is open to every political group and independent member in this chamber. This year, every member of this council has been represented in some way at that group, and the budget presented before you today has been a result of 20 out of 22 of us working collaboratively together in the best interest of the people of Inverclyde. So thank you to each one of you. It's been a pleasure working with you this year. I want to also thank our officers, our Chief Executive Stuart, our corporate directors, especially Ruth, who this is her last Inverclyde Council budget today, and our finance colleagues Angela and David, our CFO, alongside other officers who have provided data and insights into each service area. And thank you to everyone across our area who has participated in this process, especially those who took time to contribute to the budget consultation. As councillors, it is invaluable to us to hear from the public. It allows us to understand the priorities and views of those from across Inverclyde. Officers' professional guidance alongside the responses to the consultation have informed and enabled us to set an achievable and competent budget. So turning to the budget before you all today. This budget recognises the financial situation this council finds itself in, both today and with the forecasted flat cash settlement expected next year. The local government finance settlement falls short of the funding needed to sustain essential local services, with our funding showing a real terms reduction this year of 2.7 million, with another 4.7 million reduction being expected next year. This means that the total budget gap for 26-28 is 8.2 million. In addition to this, we have increase in service pressures, inflated borrowing and contract costs alongside pay pressures. All of this affects how we can balance our budget. As a local authority, we must set a balanced budget. We know we have to close this gap by cutting services, depleting reserves, and using the limited powers we have to raise funds, which include charges and council tax. This task is made even harder when we are only given single-year settlements that are heavily ring-fenced alongside national commitments with no budget allocations. We have tried to balance the commitments in our council plan alongside the reality of our government grant and the needs of our community and its people. What this looks like within today's budget is £1.5 million of new cuts, in addition to the £1.8 million of previously approved cuts, which unfortunately has resulted in the loss of up to 26 full-time equivalent posts through vacancies, natural attrition and voluntary redundancies, with no compulsory redundancies being made. But we cannot be complacent. There is no more factor in this council, and our reserves are single use only, which means that in the near future we will be facing the dilemma once again of what to cut to balance our budget unless Scottish Government increases our funding and reduces ring fencing. However, there are some things we have been able to protect and spend on this year. With increasing pressures from additional support needs, the proposal includes recurring revenue of £300,000 to spend on enhancing our ASN out-of-school provision, and across the next 2 years, £1.3 million for social care to protect our most vulnerable children. This budget maintains public safety by maintaining our CCTV network and our community warden service. It protects funding for employability services and apprenticeships too. It provides community funding by protecting the Community Grants Fund, which so many local organisations and people benefit from, alongside ensuring that self-managed community halls keep their current level of funding too. This budget provides subsidised summer play schemes and access to free swimming throughout the year, whilst guaranteeing free school transport for pupils living over a mile from primary and 2 miles from secondary school. This is one of the most generous schemes in Scotland. A well-renowned and successful Duke of Edinburgh scheme will continue to be run, helping our young people across the area build their skills whilst volunteering in their community. We have protected young people's access to swimming lessons, educational psychologists, the Active Schools programme, and we have protected wider community facilities by keeping open Port Glasgow swimming pool, Win Health Pool, Lynn Hill Golf Course, our libraries, our museum, and ensure the small number of community events we still support are going to be available in the meantime. All of these things have been possible because of cuts made elsewhere. Jobs and roles being removed, and because of council tax increases. We are proposing a 7.9% increase today, which is an increase of £2.36 per week for Band D households. These choices have not been easy, and every cut both today and in previous years represents a real impact to local services here. But because of these difficult decisions, and because of the contribution from council tax, we have been able to protect the services that impact our community most. This budget protects the services our community rely on, invests in our most vulnerable, and keeps open the facilities that matter most to people across Inverclyde. It's responsible, it's deliverable, and it is realistic given the circumstances that we face. So once again, I thank colleagues around the room, officers and the public for their contributions and participations in this budget process, and I second the proposal before us and ask colleagues across the chamber to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Yes, we'll now proceed to open the floor up, and first of all I go to Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Provost. I am happy to support this budget. I think this has been my ninth budget since being elected. I think Councillor McCabe said it's his 20th, so I'm not, though I'm no longer the baby in the chamber, I'm certainly what they call not the most experienced, but we have all experienced over this period of time, since I've become a member, that obviously this budget has been one of the most difficult decisions that we make as elected members. During that period, I've noted and appreciated the concern, effort and time taken both by officers of the council and elected members in developing budget proposals. And what has to be said, during my time as elected member, a constrained fiscal environment in the UK. The SNP group has contributed to and, as I said again, supports the budget prepared by the Members' Budget Working Group. Whilst we understand the challenges presented by increasing council tax, as outlined by members in this chamber today, we think that the council tax rise proposed this year and indicative next year is required to provide an appropriate balance between savings, protecting services and raising revenue. I note the £77 million of savings since 2008 has been raised in this chamber as a metric, and I don't doubt there have been difficult decisions and savings taken since and before 2008. But given that staff costs equate to about 60% of our budget, savings of £77 million could easily be equated to approximately 900 to 1,000 losses of jobs in Inverclyde Council. Whereas the number of people employed by Inverclyde Council has actually increased from 4,000 to 4,500 since 2012. And I apologise, I don't have the full-time equivalent numbers, but the numbers are relatively static. Though I do appreciate that the people will be losing their jobs through going through redundancy as part of this process. And I really think thanks to those people for the service to the Inverclyde Council. So as an organisation, we are doing more of some things, generally as a result of national initiatives and less of others. And it always is a balance to determine how best we spend our limited resources appropriately. Has fiscal constraints at the UK and Scottish level enable us always to get the right balance? No. But there were savings that could and should have been made? Yes, undoubtedly. Going forward, we need to ensure that decisions on tax and spend are taken at the most appropriate level to enable us to develop the right solutions for our area. And I personally think this should include devolution of significantly more powers to local authorities. I think in this chamber we are in the right places to make as many decisions as we can for our local area. I've noted and has been noted publicly as well, the SNP Group's campaign for enhancement to SN summer play to be baseline funded in Inverclyde. Indeed, this was a red line for us in negotiations in last year's budget. I'm terribly glad to see that this has been included in this year's budget, and also glad to see the comments in support of this proposal from the Labour Group. Although I note this is not an end in itself, but rather the start of a process to provide equity provision. In developing this budget, elected members have also included a further £1.3 million, as mentioned by other members, over 2 years for children's services to address local pressures in the service. An example of how we need to tailor our services to our local needs, no matter what the national picture is. I'm glad that we've been able to prepare a 2-year budget. As been said, it might have been a bit easier to do a single-year budget, but and especially as this is in an election year. Whilst the second year will always require review, I would hope that this approach continues, as I feel it contributes to us making a longer term and therefore more prudent decisions. We will certainly continue to make the case for a rolling 2-year budget going forward as a group. Turning to the savings not taken, and Councillor Maguire has noted a number of those in her address to the Chamber today. I think we need to take a different approach next year, as there clearly is no appetite within a significant majority of elected members to utilise the savings options that went into the consultation. While I understand that this remains a political decision, but if we're not prepared to take such savings, does it serve a practical purpose? We need to get off that political treadmill, I think, and move to discussing how we provide services rather than what services we should provide. And of course, not wanting to prejudice what's going to happen in the remaining sessions chamber today, if this budget passes, we will need to begin the process for next year. There are significant challenges ahead, aspects of net zero, climate emergency hasn't gone away, our council estate and our school estate. And noting some comments that's made earlier in this chamber, and to quote the old BT advert, we need to work smarter, not just harder. So, but in conclusion, the SNP group is happy to continue to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Does any other member wish to make a contribution? I do not see any hands online. Can I just, on behalf of members who were not on the members' budget working group, thank sincerely those who were, and for the amount of time and effort that you put in to come to this budget that we have in front of us today. Councillor McCabe, would you like to comment any further?
I don't feel the need to really comment any further. I think it's been good that we've got unanimity here today, and I agree with Councillor Carter that we do need to start thinking about the next budget almost immediately. The fact that we've got a 2-year budget gives us a bit of space, but yeah, we know the challenges that lie ahead. But if we can work in the same constructive way as we have this year, then hopefully we'll be able to meet those challenges.
Thank you, Councillor McCabe. Therefore, members, can we agree the motion put forward by Councillor McCabe?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. And that ends today's meeting. Thank you for your attendance.